So if you've been following along on the channel over the past year or so, you know that I've been creating some short films. I've been kind of mostly dabbling in the horror short film genre. And I recently released a new short film called The Fog, and you can watch that here if you haven't already. But on the release of that film, someone in the comments put, "Why horror? Why are you always making horror?" And in this video, I want to talk about why, as a new filmmaker, you should consider making horror films first.
You're the moon starter, aren't you?
Will you help me?
What do you need?
Actually, up until about last year, I had never even explored the horror genre. I'd only seen a few of the movies when I was younger, but then I found a few horror shorts online that got me curious about the genre more. I used to think it was just jump scares and silly, cheap antics, but then I found out there's something about the genre that I really liked. And I started watching horror films, and it dawned on me that there was a lot more here that made sense for attempting to make my own short films, and so I decided to start shooting them on my own. And the first reason being the budget. A lot of horror films are actually great ways for movie studios to try out up-and-coming directors and actors, and they're basically the cheapest way to make a movie, and they make for great tests for the industry. You'll see studios like New Line Cinema making a few $5 million horror films each year. They're usually shot in just a handful of locations, and more often than not, just one location. Usually an old abandoned house or something like that. These films actually tend to make a ton of money at the box office and in the global market, so it's kind of a no-brainer for studios to make a few of these each year. Given that they cost like $5 million to make, probably some odd million to promote, but then they make sometimes $100 to $200 million globally. So when trying to make my own independent short films, the horror genre made a lot of sense because you need less actors and often only one or two locations. The genre just lends itself to cheaper and more obtainable filmmaking. But the other biggest reason to watch horror and also try to make your own horror is to learn about and practice suspense. No matter what genre of film you are watching, there will be some sort of suspense. Suspense is one of the best ways to engage an audience and have them interested in the story. And building suspense comes from the filmmaking itself just as much as the story. Just because a scene is written suspenseful on paper doesn't mean it will come out across that way on screen. So a lot of horror films are actually just built on that one technique, which is building suspense. If you can exercise these techniques, you'll find that you can implement them into other film genres, ultimately making your movie a better viewing and more engaging experience. Take Bridesmaids, for instance. Yes, a comedy film, a film that has no intent on trying to scare you. But in this next scene, you can see here that they're using the technique of suspense to keep you engaged.
You don't look very well, Annie. I feel fine.
So in this scene, we just discovered that all the bridesmaids have food poisoning. But our protagonist here, Kristen Wiig, is refusing to accept that it was her fault. But the antagonist is trying to get it out of her. So let's look here and see how they build suspense in this scene. First, you can see that Wiig is mildly sweaty and her opponent is clear as day. Clearly, this person does not have food poisoning. But when we cut back to Wiig the second time, she is even sweatier. And her opponent notices this and decides to intimidate her a little bit with her body language by moving closer to her. From a blocking standpoint, I think this is great because she is showing dominance in the scene and making the audience feel more claustrophobic, as she is now inside Wiig's personal space, making her uneasy and increasing the tension a little bit more.
Helen, I'm hungry, and I wish I had a snack.
But then her opponent goes even further with this by trying to get her to eat some candy while also getting even closer to her. She puts the bowl right up into her face, and we can see here that Wiig is getting even sweatier. She's literally dripping at this point. All while we are cutting back to what could happen at any moment. The bridesmaids in the other room releasing things from their body. I mean, this might as well be a slasher movie, and those are people being slashed in the other room. And then here Wiig is with Jigsaw being tortured by a sick game. Until the scene takes a turn and the stakes are raised again. Her friend, the person that matters most to her in that scene, thinks she's going to lose the fight with the food poisoning and runs outside, right into traffic. Cars coming at her, they're loud, they could hit her at any moment, they could kill her. Look at all the tension that is being built right here until she eventually has to sit down, and well, you know what happens after that. See, this scene could have been played out way differently. They could have immediately just had the girls start losing their bits everywhere, and it would have been gross, and it still would have moved the story along and proven their point. By sending our protagonist into a comedy-style torture scene, we can't help but want it to work out for her, even though we know inevitably something terrible is going to happen. Just like in a horror film when our character is about to get got. It keeps you intrigued and you want to know what's going to happen next. How are we going to get to that point? Is she going to come out unscathed? Or is the demon ultimately going to get her? So in turn, if you can learn how to master this suspense first, you'll be able to make even a comedy more engaging. And what's cool about horror, often you don't even need an opponent. Your opponent's not even there. It's more about the fear of the unknown in a horror film. So this gives you the ability to, when you're making a short film, just kind of shoot with one actor and the opponent is just darkness, or it's something down the hallway, or it's something behind the door. You don't ever really know. It's action and reaction, but your actions can come from nothing in reality. So for those who are asking, that's why I'm creating within the genre. I'm able to get a small crew together or no crew at all and shoot something on a limited budget. Not only am I learning about suspense, but I'm learning about blocking, lighting, composition, and editing. And I'm able to do it on a small scale without super experienced actors or locations. So ultimately making it easier to film. So before we go, I want to thank today's sponsor, which is Squarespace. Squarespace is an all-in-one platform to present your work online. If you're anything like me, you need a website to show off your work, but Squarespace makes it super easy to do a lot more than just have a portfolio. I mean, recently I was trying to sell a bunch of my camera gear, stuff that I don't use very often, because I'm trying to fund my next short film, and any extra cash would go a long way right now. So I was able to just set up a garage sale on there, basically set up an entire professionally made product page, and it took me no time at all. I just grabbed some photos of the products, I threw them in there, I added shipping to it, and everything's just already built into the platform to create a store. So it made it super easy, and I've already sold almost all of the gear I've put on there. And I'm even able to send tracking numbers to the people that have purchased the products. And I was able to bypass things like eBay and Facebook Marketplace and stuff like that. I just did it all myself through my website. So if you're looking to build a website right now, you can do that with Squarespace. Click the link in the description to get 10% off. And I want to thank Squarespace for sponsoring this video. And as always, guys, I'm Citrus Sakurai, and until next time, see ya.